This video is going to be discussing some very serious matters pertaining to cancel culture. It is part one, what I hope to be a two-part series about the effects of cancel culture on my mental health and on the mental health of others that is clear of people I do not know, but it is clearly impacting the mental health of other people in ways that I will demonstrate. First of all, about myself. I have anxiety disorder and I am on the autism spectrum. This particular comorbidity is extremely common, but in some cases, including mine, as one psychologist has told me, it can cause things that non-professionals and even some professionals who are not trained in specifically anxiety disorders or autism spectrum disorders to think are psychotic. So I want to say that I have thought some things, but that are going to sound psychotic, but they're not. They are products of somebody of a mind that has two different disorders, and the difference is that I know that they're not real. These thoughts, these almost conspiracies, are not real, and they like come and bubble up to the surface sometimes, and sometimes I express them with my mouth. But that's in a moment of irrationality, and I really don't believe it in my heart. Second of all, I want to get my political background out of the way because this is, after all, a political video in a lot of ways. I am a conservative, but that does not mean, according contrary to the opinion of many liberals, that I do not believe in common sense. First of all, yes, my religion is conservative on the social level, but the fact is that after the Dobbs decision, and actually I was saying this before the Dobbs decision, uh, that overturned Roe v. Wade, but a lot of people dismissed it like Roe v. Wade will never be overturned. Well, you see how that came now. It was basically like I can't say anything about my. I have to separate. We have to separate our views on LGBT people, our our religious views as a spiritual matter, from our reactions to them in politics. Therefore, politically, I have no problem with LGBTQ plus people. I feel any feelings that I have to them would be considered homophobic or transphobic. I have shifted to being in the spiritual realm of my brain and not that would not affect my day to day interactions with people who are outside of my religion, and even then I would not insult them in ways that are based on politics or in general uh in it things that, unless you are a spiritual person, that you wouldn't believe in. uh Another point politically is that while I am conservative, I do support the main message of Black Lives Matter. My only problem is I think the media, for many reasons, not just political, but I also think in terms of getting views, uh, has has portrayed as the leaders of Black Lives Matter a bunch of left wing radicals. Uh, and they and I've talked to multiple black people, and they have agreed with me that the media does not represent Black Lives Matter in a fair and even way, and it is a amorphous movement with no leaders, but the media is feeding a narrative that there are leaders who are not really leaders. Now, getting Now that's going to be important because I'm going to bring up Black Lives Matter later in the video, because one of the things I want to talk about with cancel culture is the canceling of Dave Chappelle and how the recent, basically, attempted shanking on him has affected my mental health. Basically, Dave Chappelle was canceled because, among other things, he said that he is Team Turf. Now, you have to understand the context. He was talking about J.K. Rowling. I want to talk about J.K. Rowling in the second part of this series, which will focus more on why this is affecting me so deeply on a personal level. But he said that Rowling was called a TERF, a trans exclusive radical feminist, and that therefore he's Team TERF. And therefore people say, oh, well, he admitted to being a TERF. Well, actually, no. If you look at his joke, he's a comedian. He's joking. He was basically saying, I don't see Rowling as a TERF, which, by the way, there are trans people, and I will get to this in the second segment of this series, that actually agree that Rowling is not a TERF. But he feels that he agrees with them. But he knows that some of the ways that people have come after Rowling, some of the things that people come after Rowling, even though he doesn't agree with her fully and thinks she's gone extreme in some ways, would classify him as TERF to some people who he sees as extremists. And therefore was saying, according to an extreme definition of TERFism, I am a TERF. Now, how does this affect my mental health? Because, well, I am on the autism spectrum. We don't get irony. We shouldn't. People on the autism spectrum often do not get irony as well as other people, nor humor. And I got exactly what Dave Chappelle was saying. But people seem not to and think that he was being serious. So therefore, if you think about it, in my mind, there's part of me that's like, that are the people who are in control of trans rights movements, or the people who set themselves up as represented, are they really the people that are capable of this? Are they, if I'm getting this, are these, is because organizations like GLAAD condemned what Chappelle said. So are they being run by people with really severe autism? Like that, and I can only see people, given how I am, I can only see people whose autism is so severe that it would impair their lives, and I can't understand it. Therefore, it's like, I get like this thought, like, are trans people, again, it's not rational, I don't believe it. Is there a correlation between trans people and really bad autism? Maybe even autism that, maybe these people, nothing to do with them being trans, but maybe it comes with having autism that would need them to be in a home. Or even sometimes I get thoughts of cognitive impairment. Now, of course, that's totally irrational and actually might indicate that my anxiety combined with my autism has a sort of self-hating nature to the autism. And I admit that. But it's still that sort of like, it seems kind of weird to me. Second of all, Dave Chappelle a couple months ago, and this is one of the reasons why I'm making this video now, this series now, was almost, basically, I'm going to say it again, was almost shanked on stage by somebody claiming that they were doing it because he was so-called Dave Chappelle, because Dave Chappelle was transphobic and telling transphobic jokes. Well, it's interesting. GLAAD called for Netflix to post specials. They denounced him as totally transphobic, as I said this before. There was a walkout of Netflix for having their specials. while the person obviously had some kind of mental disorder, I think people should take into consideration, did these accusations against Chappelle cause him, excuse me, did they cause him to turn violent if he wasn't violent already? Or did they cause him to specifically attack Chappelle? Did they cause him to uh, attack Chappelle at that time? Did they cause him to be violent at that time? Maybe he would have been violent later. I admit, maybe because Chappelle was obviously able to defend himself and had a trained security team that was able to defend him, that maybe it was actually the best thing for this guy to attack Dave Chappelle, because he could have attacked somebody who was defenseless, who he knew, So maybe, like, in the end, it's best net result, but we should not have comedians being attacked on the stage. And what's really bothering me is that organizations like GLAAD do not seem to, like, even consider the possibility that their rhetoric may have inflamed this guy's mental health. Because, see, as a Jew, I would be concerned if somebody did that in the name of, oh, that guy may be an anti-Semite. I would be concerned that people would turn around and give us the same kind of, we'd call that terrorism. And I'm going to get more into this in the second part of the video. Like, some of the actions that people have canceled. Obviously, this guy is a loner and is clearly mentally ill, but there are other things, and that's for the second part of the second video. But I sort of consider if that happens, somebody say, oh, attack somebody who is accused of being anti-Semitic, and some people are like, oh, he isn't, and it was up in the air, I would be like, well, people are going to give Jews the same stereotype that exists with Muslims. And like, it puzzles me that organizations like GLAAD don't even care about what this guy did. They might have inflamed him. That people turn around. I'm thinking of it. I've heard actual people, conservatives, who do not have that ability to separate religion from politics. Like I do, because basically my religion's permissiveness toward abortion is so broad that a rabbi could get arrested for making a religious statement in some of the states that have made laws after the Dobbs decision, even triggered laws. So I can't so therefore this is making me feel like I have to separate. But people who haven't have basically turned around and said, that's terrorism. Why? And they're not denouncing it, especially since, okay, maybe there's a disconnect here, because I'm a religious minority. Being trans or gay or lesbian is not a religious minority, so maybe easier to connect to Muslims in that, like, saying, oh, that could happen to us. And it's especially weird because about a year ago there was a attack by a Muslim in Texas. He took a congregation of Jews hostage, and uh, this Muslim extremist and mosque here in New York on Long Island basically apologized. It was like, okay, that's very nice as a Jew, but like, we didn't suspect you. Did you have any links to this guy? No, and there was no links reported. Why are you apologizing? Oh, it must be well, maybe you want to head that off before it gets as bad as the stereotype as Muslims? Because, again, in my head, it can seem as terrorism, and I'm going to get more to this in the second part of the video. But it's more, and this is where Black Lives Matter comes in, is that after Dave Chappelle was attacked, people turned around and said, oh, well, he made a joke. That man was a trans man. Well, yes, that joke is problematic. I think he was just joking. Oh, there are people who are going to say that, and who would say that no matter who the guy was. I was like, he was secretly he was joking about conspiracy theories. He wasn't actually saying it, or maybe he was saying that people think that I think that because they think I'm transphobic. That that it was a little wrong, but he had just been attacked, and what was the response? That proves that he's more transphobic. That proves that he's transphobic. Well, there's more proof. But that's not. But if you think he was just attacked, he wasn't thinking rationally. Okay, maybe he should apologize. I'm not saying. I thought about it. Yes, I think David Chappelle should apologize, but he was just attacked. Like, give him a break. To me, that seems almost psychopathic. And therefore, I get these thoughts in my head that are like, are trans people psychopathic? Of course, I know that's not true. But like, they can't empathize with somebody who was almost shanked, especially since they've had violence against them. Like, I bet you, survivors of anti-trans violence aren't the most rational immediately afterwards. So why expect Chappelle to be, or take his words as anything other than frustration? Now, here's where Black Lives Matter comes in, because it's come to my attention since then that Chappelle got people to record in their homes of his African American community, because he's obviously African American. He got people in his community to record their reactions to the murder of George Floyd after it happened during lockdown. And then after lockdown, he compiled them all together. And when things started opening up, he went to he had film festivals. But then the closer came out, special the closer, and that's where he made the Team Turf joke and other jokes, and people canceled his show, the showing of this documentary of the effect of the George Floyd murder on a certain African American community from being on the film festival because it's made by a transphobe. So are you saying that you don't care about the murder of you care more about trans people being offended than you are about the actual murder of George Floyd? I mean, obviously that's not true. But I mean, doesn't it look weird? Can't you admit to yourself? Like, I may be saying this because of mental health problems, but it does look weird. Like, what's more important? Chappelle never said to kill a trans person. Here, a black guy actually died. He's recording history, other black people reacting to this horrific murder. And you won't even let it, and because you think he's transphobic, you won't let him breathe his thoughts on the murder? I don't get that. And it's making me think that maybe the people in control of trans rights are actually racists. Maybe they don't think Black Lives Matter. Maybe they think that Black Lives Matter the least of all lives. Maybe they're saying the N-word. And again, I do not believe that, really, but my mental disorders are making me think, have thoughts about this. And why should anybody have thoughts like that? Because if you think about it, it is logical to think that. It's just maybe people don't put it together unless they have some kind of disorder. But if you think about it, yeah, it's kind of weird. What matters? The guy who made it said offensive things? Or that he's getting the reaction of actual black people to the murder of George Floyd? What's more important here? So, this video is going on long enough. It's over 19 minutes. I'm going to stop here, but next time we're going to talk about why this is impacting my mental health to me specifically, and also some other issues. Again, going back to that idea of there are other people other than this one guy who attacked Chappelle who are violent, who seem to use cancel culture as an excuse for violence. And I'm going to link this video in that video, because there's going to be a lot of context of his mission missing. I hope to see you when I have that video up. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.